Hello and welcome into Full Screen Podcast. I'm your host, Kira Aster. Joining me today, as always, is my co-host, the Guy Ritchie to my Russo brothers, the TikTok to my Hercules. It's Raven Ebert. Raven, how we doing?
Oh, which Guy Ritchie? Because I would love to be like 90s Guy Ritchie. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gotta be 90s. There's no other answer.
Yeah, I can see that. I actually have been dressing a lot like people from Guy Ritchie movies in the 90s because the temperatures have finally started to convince me that it's fall here in the West Coast as well. So
the reason we are talking about Guy Ritchie and TikTok and Hercules and Russo brothers, it is very entertaining, guys. We're not going to go into it because that's not today's topic, but look it up. There's going to be a Hercules TikTok musical that the Russo brothers are producing, and it's
do they intend to release it on TikTok, or is it going to be a theatrical release?
Listen, they don't know what they're doing, is the vibe I get. It just seems like they saw TikTok and they understand none of it, and they were like, TikTok, huh? There's something there.
Okay, so I don't know if you've heard of this, but I don't know if people who are listening to have heard of this as well, but there is something to be said about a success story on TikTok vis-a-vis musicals, because in 2020, when the first season of Bridgerton was released by Netflix, a couple of like super fans, not associated with the show or even with a Broadway production as far as I know, just kind of got together on TikTok because their platform allows for stitching, right? Where you can respond to another person's video with your own video or to another person's audio.
I have seen on Instagram, yes.
Yeah, they've made a Bridgerton musical based on the first season to a lot of success because this is a Grammy Award-winning production now. A Grammy Award-winning record of the musical Bridgerton, and the content is like it's I think it's good, and Hercules was a musical already, so I guess so, and there's a lot of Disney super fans on TikTok, so if the Russos wanted, they could leverage like a really rich source of material with people who are happy to contribute, but I don't know.
Yeah,
this has all gotten me very confused, and
I'm very glad for the Bridgerton TikTok musical success, but I'm gonna make fun of Russo brothers until they prove me wrong because they did The Gray Man. So today we are talking about the return of MoviePass and the new theatrical experience. So this is a series. Today is a special episode, a sort of shorter format that we started doing with the last month. We released The Future of HBO Max, which is talking about the Discovery Warner Brothers merger, and we call this series a Industry Tech Roundup. So we're doing another one today where we talk about the return of MoviePass, and which, well, used to be a subscription-based service that lets you watch unlimited movies in theaters, and is now again, ? It's coming back. So we're gonna take a closer look at the service, its history, its merits behind the new business and tech plan in a new world, and talk about the theatrical experience. So stay tuned for that. Before we dive in, Raven, tell the folks where they can share their thoughts about an Instagram live version of Into the Woods or Mary Poppins or what have you. Tell us about the socials.
No, don't do that. I will block you. You can come find us on Instagram and on Twitter for as long as that's still a thing at fullscreen_pod. We don't know if there's going to be an Instagram or a Twitter in a couple of months, but I'll let you know. Them streets are saying that things are not looking great for Twitter in particular, but you can still come and use your $8 a month for your verified account and write absolute nonsense in response to our posts, and that will give us
Oh no, that's
engagement.
dismantled as of this morning, right? The $8.
It'll
Elon
be back
can't keep his truth.
in 2 more months. Whoever said product management was easy, here you go.
Guys. Yeah.
But we still have email, which is reliable. It's our old faithful, at fullyscreened@gmail.com. You can reach out to us with new ideas for what you'd like to see us cover, or feedback on what we have been covering, or give us your opinion or inside scoop if you are a former employee of Twitter or Meta.
Yeah. Tell us all your thoughts, and let's dive in. Let's talk about MoviePass. Welcome into the all hands section. This is where today we will be discussing the history of MoviePass, so we can catch you guys up and talk about the current state of MoviePass and its return later. So the history. Everyone loves listening to history on a podcast. You ask, we deliver.
It is an interesting history too of this company.
It is. Listen, MoviePass needs to be a movie because it is. You just get out your popcorn. It's great. So most of this, what I'm going to talk about, has been compiled with an article on Complex from earlier this year in March, which is like a MoviePass explainer, and the other article that I looked at was from 2019 from Digital Trends, which is a timeline of MoviePass. Now, MoviePass began in 2011 in the wonderful little unknown place called San Francisco, with a revolutionary promise by founders Stacy Spike and Hammett Watt. And the promise was to watch one movie in theaters, in any theater, a day, for a month, for a monthly fee. 19,000 people sign up. It's great. Amazing. Now, after some initial troubles, as happens, with some customer complaints regarding movie vouchers, printing at home, the whole thing was problematic, and obviously the general discomfort of theaters, various theaters, the company relaunched the next year, costing between $29 and $34, depending on the city, and the system was revamped a bit with MoviePass, or mobile app, I should say, and a MoviePass debit card. So this is a pass, MoviePass card, making funds available when the customer selected the movie before seeing the movie and the screening time. So it's a cool little like fancy schmancy, app and a debit card.
So they had a physical debit card that they could use to buy the tickets from, and that is linked to their MoviePass account. That's kind of a very nascent stage for mobile apps as well. I would say 2013 or 14 is where you really started to see a lot of like apps that would allow you to purchase goods and services, because it was all like mobile games kind of before that on the mobile app side of things. Like, do you remember in 2007 where you could just get an app that made it sound like you were, I don't know, like speaking through a talk box or something, and people thought that was amazing. And that was kind of how mobile apps were for a long time. It's like 2013, 2014 is when you were like, oh, I can have memberships and stuff like that on my mobile app.
Yeah,
so
correct us
good
if
timing.
we're wrong. Definitely good timing. But regarding the mobile app experience and the debit card, if any of you used it, tell us what it was and what it was like in 2013, 2012. Now, AMC famously had beef early on with MoviePass, and they were like, we're not about this life, and they opted out. So they didn't allow MoviePass customers to use the service in their theaters. And now in 2014, with now they AMC is like the second biggest chain in America behind behind Regal, so MoviePass was in intense negotiations with them, and they did reach a partnership with AMC at this time. The SVP of Corporate Strategy at AMC, Christina Sternberg, said, quote, "It frankly wouldn't be smart to ignore the success of subscription in other areas of media," obviously referring to the rapid rise of Netflix happening at this time.
It was the only thing in the game.
That is correct. Yeah.
A brand new thing. Everybody was excited, and they also couldn't believe that they could pay a monthly fee and watch as much as they wanted.
Prestige
because there was no
content,
cap on how
Mhm.
much content you could get. And it was wild back in those days, like password sharing and all that. None of that came in. So you would have like a people, like a
Literally
pod of
no
people.
one that I knew had a Netflix account. They had like someone else's.
It was like a pod of people. Like the main person would be like, "This is my Netflix account. You gotta pay me so much to
This
have
is my
access to it."
ex-boyfriend, and he now changed the password, and it's the whole thing.
Ooh, that's messy. No, this was just like a roommate setup that I am describing. I didn't step into like marital, domestic Netflix dramas. But this is like when people were starting to be like, yeah, I want content for like all times of the day. There's no time that I want to watch movies. I would like to watch it anywhere, anytime, all the time, you know? It was wild.
Great stuff. Yeah, BoJack Horseman was had just come out on Netflix, I believe, in 2014. House of Cards season 2, which we don't like to talk about now. But How to Get Away with Murder was another show. Something called Marco Polo was thriving. I never watched it. But yeah, it's so driven by falling ticket sales as well for AMC. They did a partnership with MoviePass, and they launched this in Denver and Boston, costing between $35 and $45 a month for, again, one movie a day promise, really. So unlimited movies for a month. Now, Mitch Lowe, which Raven is very excited to talk about later.
Ooh,
Mitch Lowe
Mitch
came
Lowe.
into a former executive at Netflix and Redbox. Remember Redbox? Joins MoviePass as the new CEO. So the old leadership, the co-founders Hammett and Stacy are ousted at this time, and Mitch Lowe is brought on as the CEO in 2016. And I don't know what to say. It's just he starts testing different subscription tiers, focused on utilization mainly. So the more movies you watch, the more expensive the subscription tier is, right? Makes sense. But things start to rapidly really just decline. At the end of the year, they do a partnership with Studio Movie Grill, which allowed customers to, for a limited time, watch 30 movies a month for just $10. So the price dropped like almost $25 to $30, and this is for a limited time. This is a limited time promotion to like maybe test out the market, right? The customer
Are there even that many movies to watch in theaters?
I just can't. I mean, terrible. The customer base is now 20,000. In 2017, another misstep, the biggest misstep. They bring in Helios and Matheson, an analytics firm, or I guess Helios and Matheson purchases a majority stake in MoviePass and makes this limited time subscription tier permanent. So you're just watching movies for $10, like $9.95 something, guys, not even $10.
Okay,
it's a little ridiculous.
They veered very hard into being completely different from whatever plan it was that MoviePass originally rolled out in, right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing this is not what the founders had intended at all.
No, just no. And this terrible decision to put someone in charge with no passion for the product, positioning, or the user base, or just like movies in general, leads to a chain of terrible events. User base increases to 400,000. That's like a 20-fold increase. Website crashes. Yeah, duh. Customer service cannot keep up. Card shipments to customers are delayed. AMC, a hard-fought partnership with AMC. AMC refuses to honor this partnership and calls this business model and MoviePass unsustainable, and says that the customers are no longer welcome. MoviePass customers are no longer welcome in their theaters. It's not what you want. So this new Helios and Matheson backed model, this like unlimited movies for like $9.95, relied on overcoming the low cost and finding profit for the service by increasing the number of members, and then selling targeted advertising based on its members' interests. Quote, like Google or Facebook. Cool. Cool. Yeah.
But Facebook is free, and using Google is free. So people tend to be more, I would say, understanding or accepting of being advertised to in those products. If you're paying $10, you kind of are like, why am I still being advertised to? That's crazy. I'm paying like a fee.
Yeah, it's not good. It's almost like they didn't think this through. This enormous, tremendous growth that we just mentioned, so about 400,000 customers in a few months, and the nonsensical business plan in a short period of time should have rung major alarm bells for customers, for people in the boardroom, for the investors. But no, by the end of 2017, the service had reached 1 million subscribers. So obviously the company is now shown to be losing about 20 million to 40 million a month. The company starts to add restrictions. So they introduce a surge pricing model for popular showtimes and the inability to rebook a movie. They start to accuse customers that the act of rewatching is a gross misuse of their service. They're somehow tricking the system and rewatching the movie. I don't know. This just sounds bad.
It's always a good look to accuse your customer base of not using the app properly. That is a classic move.
You just don't get my product. You don't get it. The website and service goes through many outages, continues to go through many outages as this time. And this is where it's about to get spicy. So now the SEC gets involved. So a Securities and Exchange Commission report was filed around this time, following the technology issues, and it revealed that MoviePass secured an emergency loan of $6 million for its merchant and fulfillment processors. The filing showed that if the company cannot pay these merchants, they, quote, may cease processing payments for MoviePass, which would cause a MoviePass service interruption. And a service interruption occurred on July 26th of 2018, right at the release of Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible Fallout. Remember the mustachioed Henry Cavill just like cocking his shoulders in a bathroom with Tom Cruise? Yeah, that was a good movie.
I'm just picturing like SEC coming in with like guns and stuff, and people are like, wow, they really went all out for this movie. Like, do you remember in Charlie's Angels where Matt LeBlanc was like a movie actor who was clearly doing a parody of the Mission Impossible movies? Wow, the Mission Impossible movies are still going on. And the Charlie's Angels plot is happening around him. And he's like, wow, they really did a lot for this premiere. That's so cool. And it's actually like the MoviePass guys getting swatted by the SEC. I don't know.
Oh, Lord.
I was just thinking of Arrested Development, because the SEC, if you are aware, is the same people that took George Bluth to jail. So
no touching. Yes.
No touching.
Yeah. And so, of course, at this time, many customers are fed up, and they tried to cancel the service. And I really encourage people to Google this, because a lot of people at this time posted a screenshot of the emails that they got after canceling the service. some Twilight Zone shit was happening where they were enrolled in a new plan. The price is now raised to $15 with built-in restrictions. It's no longer unlimited movies. But if you tried to cancel and you think it's canceled, like 3 or 4 days later, you get an email that you're enrolled in a new plan. And I just want to read this quote from a screenshot from a user, Courtney Guth, at Courtney Guth on Twitter, where she posted this email. And the end of the email, this is the opt-in, they're opted into the new plan. And at the end of this email, it says, please note, if you had previously requested cancellation prior to opting in, your opt-in to the new plan will take priority and your account will not be canceled. What?
Okay, so have you heard, I'm sure you must have, but for people listening, you'll hear references to like what they call dark patterns or dark user experience or dark UI patterns. This is a really good example because from anecdotal stories that I have seen on the internet, some kind of review of MoviePass, the way that they told people about this was like an in-app notification, and it, whatever vague awful language that you just the corporate speak that you just used was the same thing that they saw, and there was a button in there that said acknowledge. So people thought, okay, that means that you send me this shit, I read it and I've seen it. But that acknowledge was the call to action button. Like that was what triggered the whole opt in. So they didn't use the language opt in, they said acknowledge, which is really
fuck this bullshit.
Yes, yeah, it's very awful. Duplicitous because they had no idea that that's what they were doing. So people were like, I never opted in again. Where did this come from? And it was because the new language around the new restrictions about what they were allowed and not allowed to do was sent in an in-app notification and click acknowledge to move past that notification. So
yeah, that shit is some like evil copywriting. Like that's not okay.
Yes, and it's what they call dark UI patterns, where you're forcing the user to do something that they don't want to, and this is why you get all the shitty reviews deservedly, because that's just at worst case completely unethical, and at best case you're clearly just not making something for people to actually use, but you're putting out a statement that says people to us are just a means of, getting money. We're not trying to provide a service. We're not trying to even alleviate a small problem for anybody. We're just here to suck you dry. And that's disgusting, but this is not what the SEC came after them for. No one comes after you for like dark UI patterns. I want to provide context on that because, and I hope this user got clarity on that later, but if they didn't, sorry for this to be the way that you found out, but like that's where you opted in. So it's really evil. And those kind of small things are tells, right? Like if you start seeing those dark UI patterns, you're like, okay, I know not to trust this place now.
We'll keep moving here with the history and the timeline. So around this time, AMC also launches their own subscription service, the Stubbs A-List, which is priced at $20 a month for 3 movies a week, which is pretty great. And there's a series of juvenile tweets from MoviePass about this. It's very reminiscent of Tinder, how Tinder went ham on Vanity Fair in 2015 for the article that Vanity Fair wrote about, I believe, the apocalypse of dating or something like that. Tinder
no.
It very
I remember the tweets from MoviePass. It was clearly like, it felt like a personal beef and not like 2 corporations. It felt really awful. Immature.
Pretty soon after, the chief product officer, Mike Berkeley, left the company after just 6 months, which is not a good sign. And a board member at Helios and Matheson also jumped ship. And more dark days followed. The New York Attorney General Barbara Underwood started investigating Helios and Matheson for potential fraud to determine whether the companies misled the investors regarding its assets. Spoiler, it sure did. In the spring of 2019, MoviePass tried to revamp the service again with a $10 fee for 3 movies per month, only available to annual subscribers. So if you wanted month to month, guess what? Not available. You have to sign up for a year in advance. But this was not enough to save the service, and by July 4th weekend, an important time for movies in general, the service went offline, and Mitch Lowe wrote an open letter. Quote, "We plan to make this improvement by utilizing an enhanced technology platform, which is in the final stages of completion," which lies. Then come more troubles. There's a security breach and release of customer credit card information from an encrypted database happened. So like a lot of customer private information is leaked. And in the fall of that year, in another letter, Lowe mentioned that over the past several months, MoviePass TM, he took the time to write TM, worked hard to relaunch its groundbreaking subscription service and recapitalize the company. It pains us to inform you that effective 8 a.m. ET on September 14, 2019, we must interrupt all service for current MoviePass subscribers. And at this point, we are unable to predict if or when MoviePass service will continue. It did not. That was the end for MoviePass in 2019 September.
Wow.
Regarding the legal troubles, though, in December 2020, MoviePass and its parent company Helios and Matheson settled for $8 million regarding the claims that it had misled the public and employed an insidious bait and switch scheme regarding its plans and the availability of its offerings. And that was all for, I guess, the old guard of MoviePass. Now, fast forward. Yes, way to go. In November 2021, the original founder, Stacy Spikes, bought the company out of bankruptcy court with plans to relaunch, and a countdown appeared on MoviePass's website, which said, MoviePass, the movie is about to start, and then there's a countdown of the number of days and hours right under it. If it all sounds like a movie, well, you're not wrong. Mark Wahlberg is hard at work saying hi to your mother, and also making a documentary about the rise and fall. Stay away from my mother.
Stay away from my mother, Mark Wahlberg.
Making a documentary about the rise and fall and now rise again of the company, which I'm in. A movie about MoviePass, I'm so in. Which now brings us to MoviePass's triumphant return, right? Back with its original founder, back with its father, Stacy. Now there seems to be enough time has passed that there seems to be an interest and more goodwill from the public and from the industry and from the tech scene around this comeback story. The vibes seem to be in general good right now. Now Raven will tell us about the new MoviePass and the merits behind the new business plan and the new tech in this new world.
Welcome to Missed Objectives and Key Results, our second part in these Industry Tech Roundup episodes, where we like to talk about how the industry is, well, it's missing the mark. So OKRs are a key indicator of how your product is doing, which is why we're using that terminology to really dive into the product in question today.
Preach, baby, preach!
One of the struggles that I feel both Kira and I seem to be picking up on is that a lot of these places don't know whether they're a tech company or a media company or both, and they don't know how to walk that fine line that may distinguish one from the other and how differently those two operate, even though it can seem like they may have overlapping operating requirements, but it is an interesting and evolving product line, as we should say, because the convergence of technology and media is not new, but within the digital frontier, there's a lot of things to be discovered. And so MoviePass is really like an excellent use case or case study of like understanding the differences between how to run a media company versus a tech company. And the first thing that they started off with MoviePass making changes is updates to the leadership. So here's some fun updates since the last SEC indictment that they were handed. It looks like they took a look at the SEC indictment and said, we got out of that, we entered a settlement, and then they got comfortable.
No.
And then the Department of Justice said, hey, let's go get involved in this MoviePass thing. And now they've handed out a new indictment that can result in prison time because it comes from the DOJ and not the SEC. Because white collar crime is like easy to skirt around. As you know, Arrested Development is an excellent show that everybody should go watch. The first 3 seasons. And I say that the SEC was sort of like the shot that Mulan fired into the snowy capped mountains, and then the DOJ indictment was the avalanche that came right after that. And this is fascinating. So both of the individuals that you mentioned earlier, J Mitchell Lowe and the, I should say, Helios and Matheson analytics companies, Ted Farnsworth, who is the other person indicted in this, they have now been accused by the DOJ of allegedly scheming to defraud MoviePass investors by producing materially false and misleading representations. Keep in mind, once again, that these indictments are not from defrauding the consumer, but rather their investors. So if you're poor, you're not really getting any justice this way. So don't get too excited. If you rob poor people, you'll, get a slap on the wrist. But if you rob rich people, you could go to jail. So this is what's about to happen. Both Lowe and Farnsworth had already settled with the FTC over their alleged fraudulent activities affecting MoviePass customers, and they were being sued by the SEC, and they had thought that they'd closed the lid on that. But then this new indictment alleges that both these individuals, Lowe and Farnsworth being from Helios and Matheson specifically, that they falsely claimed that MoviePass's $10 or specifically $9.95 unlimited plan was tested and found to be sustainable and profitable, or potentially even break even on the subscription fees alone, and that was a lie. So they allegedly knew that this unlimited plan was a temporary marketing gimmick to grow new subscribers and artificially inflate the stock price of Helios and Matheson's and attract new investors. And so it was basically just a scam that they were running to make their stock prices look good, which is something that I think a lot of people in tech are aware of. If you, for example, take a look at, I'll pick a random company, Tesla, and see how its stock prices compare to the actual product put out there, you can see that there is a lot that goes into evaluating a stock price versus what actual value the company puts out. So getting rid of these two toxic, I would say, sources.
So they will have no involvement whatsoever in the
Yeah. As you mentioned, it was bought back. MoviePass was bought back by one of the original co-founders, and Helios and Matheson in specific have nothing to do with it. I think the intention from what the CEO, Stacey Spikes, has come out on media really talking about is going back to the original intention of allowing people who love movies to watch as much as they want without going crazy with the unlimited stuff, because that is also part of the indictment. So I think that while he's recognizing that type of model is unsustainable for profit, he also recognizes that it's completely toxic because it's part of what's listed in the DOJ indictment. So that old model is no longer around. So there's a brand new business model where MoviePass has been kind of doing a very slow rollout. It has launched what I would consider an alpha test in 3 cities: Dallas, Kansas City, and Chicago, to relaunch the movie ticket subscription model. I know it's being called beta, but I think it's more of an alpha because they're trying to determine like what the different tiers of $10, $20, and $30 that they're intending to roll this out on is going to involve, because that's currently not clear right now. So they started the ability for people to sign up on the wait list in August for people within those cities, and they'll be sent an email invite that included an access code that will allow them to create a MoviePass account and choose the plan of 10, 20.
Ooh, I love a little like wait list and building the hype. I love it.
Which is why there's a lot of opaqueness around what this actually looks like, because you and I, for example, unless we're tricky hobbits that use VPN, and tricksy hobbits that use VPN, we can't go to Kansas City or Dallas or Chicago, and if we could, I just imagine a person from New Zealand and Chicago. It's crazy. There's so much wind, and you can sign up for MoviePass. I'm paying $30, and I can see so many movies. Which actually, no, you can't, because it works in a credit system, kind of similar to ClassPass, which I know, Kira, you have used.
We will talk about this.
Yeah, let's do that. But it's supposed to be like a credit system that I think kind of breaks down loosely to $10 a month is the basic plan for 1 to 3 movies per month. The $20 goes to 2 to 4, and the pro plan for $30 allows 3 to 5 movies per month. And the other thing that they're working on is the partnership. So as you mentioned, they were beefing with AMC, which is kind of, they're a petty theater chain, by the way. Like, the drama between them and Universal over the Trolls World Tour movie was one of the funniest things that I saw in the dark days of 2020. MoviePass launched the waitlist, and within 5 days, there were 775,000 signups from these 3 cities. And they're not exactly small places. Chicago, I know, is going to be an interesting place for them to look at in terms of rolling it out to other major, big metropolitan areas. But Dallas and Kansas City are pretty sizable in terms of population, and a lot of variety in terms of the demographics. So you have different people with different needs around access to movie theaters, you know, how often they go, who they bring with them. So this could be an interesting case study for MoviePass to understand how consumers with like families or large groups and stuff, how they're going to use it, instead of the more single dominant markets of New York and San Francisco and LA. Those locations aren't just about like random choice as well. I think there is obviously a component of like who MoviePass could work with. So Stacey Spice even said that the locations were selected in part because the company struck deals with exhibitors in those areas. And there was more enthusiasm for the middle of the country kind of being raring to go for a theatrical experience, because I think they got hit the most. And
Oh,
They
I
want
love
to see
that. Yeah.
the people start
See,
coming back to
you
theaters.
already sense like what I was mentioning before with Mitch Lowe and Helios and Matheson. There was a sense that they didn't understand the product and the customer, and you're already getting a sense that there's understanding and empathy for the product, the lover of the product, the industry at large, and this matters. This does not go unnoticed. Very cool. What else can we look forward to with the new MoviePass?
So there's a ton around the product decisions, like I said, with the credit system coming in. They have also done away with the process of free trials. I don't see free trials available for anybody, and if you're not in those geographic areas, if you could VPN and try to get on the wait list if you wanted to, what's the point? Because they'll only be redeemed in theaters in those locations. So they're doing away with the red card that they had for their MoviePass, and they're using black. I think that's again a deliberate way to get away from the old branding and make you think less about the fraud committed by.
Is this so you have the card in the document here? Is this the new card? Oh, it looks sleek.
It
It's
is
beautiful.
very sleek, and it is using completely different branding and a completely different look to move away from that old way of perceiving MoviePass. It's a very very standard marketing move, I would say. And they're also relying on social networking because if you do join the wait list, you can receive like 10 friend invites that you can send out to other people to allow them to become members of the service. So that's cool that they are using that idea of exclusivity, but also leveraging their existing customer base for marketing is just cheap. You want to find people who live in those areas. You ask the people signing up from those areas to send it to their friends who live in that area. So that's pretty
Beautiful.
good. They are rewarding returning customers by giving them complimentary bonus credits if you join. So if you were previously using MoviePass and you're kind of signing up again, this is like a little sweetener, like a thank you for coming back kind of thing, which I think bodes really well for how they're going to be treating their customers in terms of their customer service perspective. So they had an event where they announced all of this earlier this year at the Lincoln Center, and all the attendees at that event were given complimentary beta tester accounts, and they intend to launch MoviePass in waves. So there isn't any sign that we can read in terms of where it's going to be the next location. I mean, where it's going to be launched next and how fast it's going to be launched in other different areas. It could be like one city at a time, or it could be like multiple cities. We don't know. It's.
Do you have any predictions?
I think they're going to continue with this this theory of mine that I have, where the movie going experience is the primary way that people spend time outside of their house, and they're going to continue to look at big urban areas that are within the middle of the country to service those specific markets. So concessions are not part of the MoviePass deal right now, and that could be something that comes down the line. Literally, because I have seen Stacey Spikes be asked about this on the press rounds that he was doing, where people were like, "Can I buy popcorn with MoviePass?" And he's like, "Keep asking, and we'll know that this is like a real thing people want, and we'll add it." So, yeah.
Oh, lovely. He's listening to customer feedback.
Yeah. Are you feeling warm and fuzzy right now? Because I
really am.
I'm about to dump some cold water into that warm and fuzzy.
Okay, let's go.
Stacey Spikes has been working on what I believe is now going to be a feature within the app called Pre-Show, where they allow you to earn credits for watching movies by watching an ad. It's very similar to like those free games and stuff, like you're playing Candy Crush and you want an extra life but you don't want to pay for it. It's like, okay, you pay $5 or you watch an ad or something, you watch the ad and that's done. Well, Stacy Spikes has put a little bit more mirch masala on top of that. There's some garma garam masala on top of this concept. He has eye tracker technology in
No.
Yes.
No.
He has eye tracker technology that will see whether you actually watch the ad. So you cannot, for example, lay the phone down, go to the bathroom, take a piss and come back and then it's done. No, you have to be watching the ad. And
so what happens if you do put the phone down, if you look somewhere else, does the ad pause?
I believe it pauses or it just doesn't give you the credit because you didn't do it right. The app is not available on the App Store because I guess they're doing it in such a controlled rollout, so I don't have access to the MoviePass app. But the people who have tested the pre-show, they do know that it is going to be an opt-in service, so it's not like mandatory for all people to use it. But people would want free stuff, right? They're like, oh, if I watch an ad, I'll get credit. They don't realize that they have to like literally glue their eyeballs to the right parts of the application for the eye tracking technology to pick up that they have watched the ad. So as Stacy Spikes kind of put it, it was monetizing your attention, where you as the user get to monetize your attention span and earn something in return for giving
I hate that phrase.
Attention.
I hate that. I hate it so much. Monetizing my attention. No one gets to monetize my attention but me.
This is very insidious.
Stacey.
Because
yeah,
there isn't a clause that says he can't sell this technology to someone else because it's proprietary technology that can be applied on other levels. So he could, for example, decide not to keep this in MoviePass but sell it to other people. So he has some backup of at least making money, but I feel like this is going to be a major source of income for MoviePass and knowing which ads grab the user's attention and which don't, because this is valuable like information for marketing.
If it's a journey that you're consenting to enter, I think that makes a little bit more sense. Like, okay, if it's like a separate thing, earn credits, watch an ad. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Not as intrusive, but very interested in this. Very interested to like play around with this app, and I mean, very disturbed hearing this, but I'm gonna hold my judgment.
Yeah.
Until I play around.
I think it's just the general idea of just don't, put all your eggs in one basket and be diverse as a tech company.
Smart.
So that's I can't really fault him for that business decision, but as a person with ethics around what you can do with technology, I find that this could get out of hand very quickly if it is used wantonly by people who are not good actors within the system. So MoviePass wants to grow to the point of like claiming 30% of the movie-going market by 2030, which is, as of recording this, 80 years from now. So that's kind of a lot, but the landscape of going to the movies has changed. So it's a good time to come back. I think that the value of the theater experience is being fought for, and MoviePass can position itself as like a preserver of cinema. So these are good things. And I think that if we keep out the creepy eye tracking part, everything else sounded good. It made you smile. So let's not negate the creepy eye tracking part, but yeah, let's see if MoviePass can actually not have to rely on it for secondary money and instead focus on the real business of getting people to the theater.
Final thoughts and wrap up for today's topic. So there's many things to consider with MoviePass's return. We've talked about its history, we've talked about the merits behind the new MoviePass, the new leadership, the new tech, the new business model, pros and cons a little bit. But MoviePass, we have to consider, is returning in a very changed and a very new world since 2011, since 2014, since 2017, even since 2019 when it collapsed. And before we dive into the various aspects, I do want to say all of this has strongly brought back severely mixed feelings. I hold as a consumer of products and a creator of products, right? For the quote unquote, the digital middleman type of disruption, which, think of your Ubers, think of like the biggest example is Amazon. The case of MoviePass, and Raven mentioned this before, reminds me most strongly of ClassPass. Again, a revolutionary, incredibly trendy and attractive idea, starting with low prices for unlimited availability, rapidly escalating prices and changing price tiers for severely limited availability, the constantly changing business model, and the exhausted and uninformed and overwhelmed customer service, because they're also, they're as everything changes and everything is unstable, customer service doesn't know what to do. And most of all, and this I cannot stress enough, the flawed and incomplete understanding of the space, the arena, the customer, and the relationships they hold with the local studios, their local gyms, their local yoga teachers and bar teachers. Like this, the failure to understand that is what, we saw with Mitch Lowe and Helios and Matheson. And
they're gonna jail anyway. It's gonna be inmate number 27513. So
oh my gosh.
I mean, that's what you were saying, right? It's like the relationship between AMC was so fraught before, and I'm sure they're gonna come around to it because AMC is in a different bargaining position at the table as well. So
yes.
Both of ClassPass and MoviePass could not have existed during the pandemic. So as the world is starting to reopen and people are starting to get enthusiastic about going out again, I can see a big upswing in this that could be misread as like, oh, we're gonna be back and bigger than ever. And I don't know if that's gonna last.
Yeah, and we do want to say, no shade at anyone working at these digital middleman type of companies and ClassPass. We are in the industry, we are in tech, and we know this is a very tough time right now. And our love goes out to anyone affected by what's happening right now, but we are merely using these names to sort of further contextualize what's happening at MoviePass, to use examples in current culture. And, every company to some extent is guilty of this, just to be clear. I'm using examples and Raven is using examples we are most familiar with, so just take that into account. We are not attacking anyone, except Mitch Lowe. Now onto the future of MoviePass and the new theatrical experience. So let's start with the first point: a competition with existing reward programs, AMC Stubs A-List and Regal Unlimited. Raven, what are your thoughts here?
I mentioned this before that the obvious advantage is that I don't have to go see Regal. I don't have to go see it in an AMC. I can support independent theaters because I like how kooky and fun they are, and I can go see, movies by Yorgos Lanthimos with other people who are not going to be confused about The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer and The Favorite. So I've had a lot of good experiences in independent movie theater, so I want to support that, and if MoviePass gives me that, I would do it. The second is just that people don't like the experience in those theaters because I don't think it's like anything specifically to do with the theaters themselves, but movie-going audiences are not as respectful of the theater experience now. They're a lot more rude.
I was going to say, with the competition, this is something interesting you said. You want to support independent theater, so this is why you would lean a little bit more towards the MoviePass versus the AMC subscription or Regal subscription. And I wonder if this is why they've tested in the middle of America, because people there are less likely to go to independent theaters and go more to MoviePass's competitors like AMC and Regal, which are sprawling and which are trusty chains that families go to, right? So if you can prove that you're successful in these arenas, in these spheres, in these places, I think that it makes a lot more sense if MoviePass is successful against its competitors there with families, then it's a sure bet that MoviePass will be successful on the coast where people are surrounded by independent theaters. People are driven to support non-chains. And very, very interesting point, Raven. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. That leads us to our second part of this. So the market conditions are different since 2019, right? So MoviePass is returning to a very different landscape, and the future of movie theaters is the subject of many, many articles, many debates, and much discussion. I personally, and I think Raven will agree, movie theaters are not going anywhere. We love movie theaters. I feel this very strongly, and we've seen this. We question are movie theaters gonna go away? And then we see like a lot, we've seen like blockbusters like reach $1 billion, like Top Gun, Doctor Strange, Jurassic World, Dominion. All of these are near a 1 billion mark, and we're back to the summer blockbuster time, right? However, we must acknowledge that the MoviePass business model must take into account the rise of streaming and pandemic streaming, and just I think a lot of reevaluation of people's lives has caused that there is a major behavior change, right? The social sense of urgency that existed pre-pandemic, even streaming chokehold, was that like I was hanging out, I think, every weekend, like sometimes a couple of times at the theaters. Like that was get dinner, get drinks, hang out, and then go to a movie theater. And now things are different, where your social life and social urgency does not revolve around the theaters. And
can I also point out one more thing?
Yeah.
If people are saying superhero fatigue is a real thing, that could also see diminishing returns in terms of like these big studios buying out more and more screens for the next, Doctor Strange or whatever.
Yeah, no, that was one of the points I wanted to talk about as well. Like the movies that I mentioned that did reach $1 billion mark this year are all IPs, superhero movies, or sequels.
Okay.
And
so nothing that cost less than $100 million to make.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
And it part of it is a sure bet to get people to the theater in a very uncertain time. Understandable business model. But yeah, again, independent movies independent filmmakers, independent people who are just starting out in the industry, they fell in love with movies at the theater, and they dream of having their movies being played in the theater. And no shade at streaming services, because I think Apple buying Coda and getting as many eyeballs as possible to this beautiful film, eventually getting it to win an Oscar, has its own merits, right? Like, I would have not watched Coda maybe if Apple hadn't made it so available and so accessible. And so some smaller movies are getting this like streaming forward treatment. You see something trending on, well, less and less on Netflix. You're seeing a lot Apple play a lot with indie content. We're seeing a lot, like other services play a lot with indie content, investing in indie content. But there's a beauty in getting it more access, and then there's something sad that it did not have its chance on in the theater. Yeah, it's very interesting. And then I think the third thing I would say here in terms of just behavior change is that there's a massive onslaught of content. It's just, there's simply too much happening. I feel like it used to be that there's an event, there's a movie coming out on Thursday, on Friday, couple of movies coming out, and that is the event, and the world, the country kind of unites around seeing that one thing. Now at any given moment, there's a Netflix drop, The Crown, coming out, and then 2 days later, there's something else coming out. So you're just moving fast and forgetting things, and it's no longer a united cultural event that the theaters really benefited from. So there's just simply too much competing for the customer's time. I was thinking there's like two schools of thought here, right? MoviePass, either the path is, number one, MoviePass becomes a champion for movies, helping rebuild this theatrical culture that we're kind of losing. So short term, they have smaller audiences. Prices would have to be lower to draw in more audiences and getting them to build the habit of getting to the theater. Penetration would be lesser than before. But as Raven mentioned earlier, they could tap into little things like concessions and partnering with certain movie studios to even offer exclusive access to new movies.
Because they're doing something that is very valuable, which is bringing people to the theaters. So, in our earlier conversation about Rotten Tomatoes, I feel like this could be, for example, a great place to go for reviews of people who have actually bothered to see something in the movie theater and say, hey, you get a free account to post all of your movies. Or with Letterboxd or something like that, where it's like you get a free account, it's linked to your MoviePass, build credits that way. One thing or another can turn into like an ecosystem of different applications, sure, but it means that you have engaged people who care about movies and you're monetizing them going to the theaters on another level without it feeling overtly exploitative. So there could be ways to do something without the ad watching to earn credits, but like something else that allows you to earn credits, because obviously those credits cannot be cashed in like a free subscription of Netflix or something, even though that is something that is being talked about during the press run that Stacey Spikes did to promote MoviePass 2.0. So I'm hoping that they don't try to step into the streaming game necessarily, because even though that seems obvious at this point, my thinking is that they're getting audiences to go back to the theater. That's valuable. Let's keep it that way, because that is their value proposition. So
they are called MoviePass, and yes, and this is I mentioned the two schools of thought. MoviePass becomes a champion for movies, which is their original intent. The lesser preferred but quicker, maybe profit one would be that they get into the zeitgeist and partner with streaming services in some sort of way. So if you have a MoviePass subscription, MoviePass, if you're a MoviePass member, you get exclusive access to some Disney content or a new movie that comes out on Disney Plus or HBO Max, a Warner Brothers movie or something. So some areas they can play with there to offer that exclusivity to customers. However, you know what I mean? Not our favorite.
I would love to get like early access or early screenings that I can attend with the director and cast there present for answering questions.
Those would draw me to a theater so fast.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah. Like, forget concessions. Get me access to the $
$30 pass holders can like attend, and you can even like I don't know, I'm being evil over here and giving out product ideas for free, but pay $2 to ask a question or something like that. It's like an exclusive for MoviePass. Like those screenings that Jared Leto did for the Morbius Discord.
Oh, Lord.
So imagine that, but less awful.
Any other thoughts to offer here regarding future of MoviePass and the new theatrical experience?
If they could buy movie theaters that specifically enforced the rule of like having two different buildings, like one to show kids movies and the ones for not kids movies, I would personally endorse that. And I don't mean to segregate parents or whatever, but damn kids in the movie theater, I can't stand that. If you're a well-behaved kid who's like clapping at the movie because it's fun, I don't mind that. But when you start asking like shitty questions and stuff, like that's the part of the movie theater experience that really peeves me. It grinds my gear, it gets my goat. So those are like behavioral problems that I don't think MoviePass can solve. So I don't know. It can incentivize for sure, because if you're paying, less money to go see a movie, you may be less pissed off about disruption. So it could change that perspective. But
yeah, there's there's international rollout strategies that they can play with. Other digital middlemen, Uber and ClassPass did the same, but are struggling currently with international rollout, because this requires a team of resources and the level of knowledge about each city in each country with different laws and regulations that MoviePass probably
different movie consumption habits as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
You and I both know that movie consumption habits in India, for example, do not compare to the United States. It's a completely different culture there. And so understanding those big markets, particularly in Asia and Middle East, Africa areas of the market, would be requiring a lot more familiarity with that market before you just roll shit out and expect it to have the same results as the US.
Exactly. All right, so that is our discussion today on MoviePass. Let us know if you sign up for the new MoviePass, and if you're on the wait list, and what your experience has been in the past if you are a MoviePass member in pre-2019. Would love to hear it. All right, so next time, we'll be back next week. Next time we're talking about the weird Al Yankovic story. So the new movie with Daniel Radcliffe, and the quiet success of the Roku channel. Kudos to these smaller services just having their day in the sun. But very excited about the Weird movie. It's called Weird.
He's weird. He's a Weird Al. He's Weird Al Yankovic.
Incredibly excited. So we'll see you then. Until next time, full screeners. Bye.
Bye, everyone.